Dun, dun, dun. Oh.
Welcome back, everybody, to Evolving with Cory Kastle. I'm Cory Kastle, and I'm joined today by my good friend, Tony Myers.
Oh my God, what an introduction. I'm sitting over here like distracted, doing some other goofy things, but no, I'm right here with you, man. Right here with you.
Before I say anything else, before I ask any kinds of questions, I just want to make sure, I tell you before we get started with anything else, I freaking love you, man. I have such a special place in my heart for you, and the amount of times that like you've built me up and put me in a place where I felt important when I didn't feel important has been so precious to my life, and I just want to thank you for that and tell you that I hope you feel the same way, and I hope you feel as welcome as you've made me feel in your friendship.
No, wow, all that's really humbling. And I'm not good with getting compliments because I'm usually like searching for sarcasm or thinking that somebody has an agenda. And I guess that's what I get for being around the weird world of wrestling and all the weird people that we meet.
I think it's also like a being from the Northeast thing too. Like I think it's like, yeah. I think it's a part of like we're jaded by people's niceness because we don't think it's sincere, because lots of people have treated us in an insincere way when they're trying to act like we were just talking about when people try to babyface you and go, hey buddy, and try to make it like they're this good person who's like signaling some sort of virtue that they don't actually have.
Yeah, it's like it's always sunny in Philly. It's like that moment where it's like, it's Mac's mom. Dennis goes up to her and he's like trying to get back at Mac for messing around with his mom, I guess. And he's like, hey, it's me. And she's like, what do you want, Dennis? He's like, don't you think I'm handsome? And she's like, no, you're not a very handsome man, Dennis. Not at all. No. She's like, what do you want? It's like, what's your agenda? Like 17 years of living in Memphis, I could never get used to, you walk
Southern
into
hospitality.
Yeah, you're walking to Walgreens or Walmart or whatever. Second that somebody establishes eye contact with you, you're like, hey, just try that over here, anywhere in the Northeast. They're like, can I curse on this thing? Or
yeah, dude, say whatever you want.
No, I mean, it's the whole Northeastern thing where they're like, what the fuck do you want? Versus like down there, like, oh, Bubba, relax, just saying hi. And it's like, what do you want? I could never get used to that. Even after like 16, 17 years in Memphis, even coming back home, I could still never get used to. I could never get used to the Memphis way. But it's like Northeast Jersey. It's like everybody's like standoffish. Like, you casing my shit or what? What do you want?
You think somebody's always up to something for sure. Like, I mean, because it appears that a lot of people are up to something.
Yeah. I mean, it's the fear of the unknown, stranger danger. You're taught it from a young age. And you just kind of roll with it because you don't know any better. And you don't want to be one of those things where you didn't listen to somebody and they go, look what happened now. Say, you should have listened to me. You have to find out the hard way.
So I want to give you the opportunity. Because, dude, as most people who are listening and checking this out for the first time don't know, one of the like lengthiest, like most like outdrawn like conversation, most conversational, like you can go anywhere with any conversation and it can go forever if you choose for it to go forever.
Like our conversation here now.
Oh yeah,
it's going to be different. It's going to be difficult. Me being like, I know this whole thing's going to go by in like 5 minutes. It's going to feel like everything goes by in 5 minutes. But like, what would be the cutoff point? Because I'm telling you right now, like, I'm an open book, and I've always, because I was always scared that if I lied about something, it's like, How would I remember what lie and what to cover that up with?
It's got to be exhausting. It's got to be exhausting to try to keep track of lies like that.
Yeah, how many times have I like walked into a locker room and they're like, yeah, I was one of the executioners on the tour of New Japan, and yeah, that was me under that mask. It's like, yeah, right. So if for so many years, anywhere I went, I could never tell anybody, oh yeah, I'm Leatherface in Japan. They'd be, yeah, right, get out of here. I mean, it'd be the same kind of thing. Although now you could like look it up instantly, but even so, just on the onset, you're like, no, you're not. Oh, there's 100 of those. And it's like, no, there's only been 3 of us christened by the office. And it's not been like a whole lineage, like, oh, they just threw that on anybody. No, they did that with other gimmicks in Japan where they saw them work, like the Uchu Meijin power. It's like outer space, light your hand on fire, monster. They put that mask on damn near every member of every friggin' roster that was using that gimmick. They kept burning out the candle at both ends because it was successful. See, you have a whole bunch of them.
So from let's say from the early 90s till now, describe what you can about like what kayfabe has become, because back then in the 90s it was really secret. It was really protected.
Yeah, it was something that you held on to. Nowadays, it's a feather in the cap if you do not. And I still do believe in it, though. You don't want to tell some girl that you're dating what you're really getting paid, because she'll just look at you and be like, God, that's all the money that you can get for her. I thought, because I think everybody on TV or everybody that wrestles is famous and making a lot of money. So I still believe in kayfabe in that sense. I still believe in kayfabe. Like, there are so many things I had to keep to myself in dealing with Battleground Championship Wrestling and dealing with Onita. There's so much that I must kayfabe. And I got to wait for these things to come into fruition for me to even speak on them and even say what's going on or what was going to happen, or, and then it becomes one of those things too. It's like, you're not going to believe me anyway, because it sounds far-fetched, but no, this is what was told to me. This is the reality of the situation. Like, so there's a lot of that too. And there's,
the thing I live by, as far as like not announcing anything that I'm doing, I don't think that has anything to do with kayfabe either. Not trying to like overly share anything, but as far as like, yeah, we do kayfabe shit and keep it to ourselves, because like, what if I come out and I say, oh yeah, like next week I'm winning the heavyweight championship, and then it doesn't happen. They made some changes. Card subject to change. You're not getting the heavyweight champion. I'm not going out.
You're just a guy left holding the bag that was a liar. So I mean,
right.
I'd rather people see things come into fruition. Like I knew of the main event. Talking about the thing with like me, PCO, Bully Ray, and I'm teamed with Onita. Like, knew of the main event. I just told everybody. I was like, when they announced that main event, like, holy shit, even if it's just for me and that kind of thing. Means a big deal to me because, I mean, who didn't become a fan of ECW? And look at that. And, full wind. I'm back in America. I'm with a guy that's like pretty much the forefather and god of, deathmatch and all that stuff. But like, even then, Americans like extracted all the wrong values out of all the death matches. They didn't, what I mean?
Like, imagine yourself in Memphis in like the early 2000s, when you were doing those like sex and violence shows in bars and stuff, and putting yourself through that hell that you were putting yourself through with all the scar on your own body up. Imagine if that person knew that one day you'd be in a triple threat, or what was that, a 6-person tag match that had Bubba Dudley at the ECW arena.
If you want to name drop, it's like the 10-man that took place down in Texas during WrestleMania weekend, where it's like we're a team with the Rock and Roll Express, Cole Cabana, Juice Robinson. Yeah, I'll like name drop serious names. Yeah. Jimmy Wang Yang and all those guys. Like, it's not me name dropping for the sake of name dropping. It's like, look around you. Look at what you surrounded yourself with, like, and that kind of thing. If anything, it'd be like a feather in my cap. And it's another one of those things too, of like, it all came in full circle. because I mean, my goal from day one was like latch on somewhere. And I only had 2 goals breaking in because WWF was like right in my face from the get go. All the Mike Sharp guys were going up there and doing jobs. And then before it became extreme, like Gino Caruso, and they were using Savoldi's guys. And Savoldi was like 20 minutes from my house. So I was like, at an early age, you're doing, extra work for WWE. You're getting the shit kicked out of you in WWF. And you're doing the same thing. Like eventually it was like with WCW. And it was just like, I'm not gonna. I knew there was only so far stateside I was gonna go because my goal was always like wrestle in Memphis because I was a big Memphis fan. And then same thing with Japan, especially the obscure Japanese indies that were all popping up when from the minute I started going over there in '94. So it was like, so much so soon at such a young age, but like I wasn't smart enough to look around and take advantage of it. All this was happening. And by then I'd been like 5 years in. So you think I would know better, but I was too busy not paying attention. And I was too busy, there was so much more I should have learned before I stepped into that kind of shit. Like the first 2 years, you're just dwelling around. I wasn't even like trained. I went up to like Larry Sharp's a handful of times. I didn't have any kind of mentoring. And, I didn't get broken the traditional way. I did it backwards. I had matches before I was even trained.
And that was when the business was protected too.
Yeah, like, and it was very protected. But like, if they got desperate enough, they're like, I did ring crew, and then 2 days after I turned 15, they hand me a mask, and they're like, "Hey, here, we need people, kid." In the middle of a snowstorm, so it was like. 2 days after I turned 15, all right, I'm in a battle royal. I can say I honestly had a match. And then they brought me back and put me in a tag match like the show. And now when you go back and you watch that stuff, it is so friggin' cringe. You're like, oh no, this is, ugh. It's great to go back and watch. I even have this is the video cassette. You ready for that? Mm-hmm. It says $1 Million Championship Wrestling. You know what it is? It's me at like 12 years of age, and I'm wrestling a couch cushion for like 4 hours. And I come out as like Lex Luger, then I come out as Rick Steiner, then I come out as, you know what I mean? Like I come out as the whole WCW roster. And it's, of course, in the latter years up to when I started wrestling, like I said, come out as Sting or, just do their moves. I'm not like dressed up like them or nothing, but.
It's
like
so
I'm 12 years old, man.
Do you have footage of that still? Like I don't have footage of when I was first starting. When I was 14, 15 years. Maybe I have.
You broke in. Here's the coolest thing, and like, I think that both of us do like the strange osmosis. Like we got our chance. Like, what was cooler than ECW back in like 93, 94? And all the rest of, you know what I mean? It was like the coolest place to be. And then you're like from right around that area. And then the new ECW was CZW. And there you were as like a teenager. Like, even if you don't grow up, like we're just fortunate enough to have grown up where we grew up geographically. Okay.
Right. Mm-hmm.
What if you and I were born somewhere in the middle of Oklahoma? We'd have never had that opportunity to be. You know what I mean? There's no opportunity to be around.
Grateful every day for the privilege of being where I'm from and the surroundings of where I live and where I've lived my whole life. What I think going back and talking about like when I was starting at CZW when I was a kid, I had started at a different school before that, but I'm not going to mention. But they were, Monster Factory rejects, and
I try to tell people all the time, you don't know what you're getting into until you go there. So it's just like, I was a lucky idiot. I stumbled into Larry Sharp's gym because I heard Monster Factory's the place, and then my brother's friends who graduated high school with him, they were still like hanging around Jersey, so I would bum and get rides from them. And then the more wrestlers that I met, I just. You know what I mean? You're 15 years old. Where are you going? you're a couple of years away from legally getting your own car. And then the wrestling I couldn't find on weekends, I was like working at ShopRite, Pathmark, Kentucky Fried Chicken for a while, McDonald's. And, you know, it was like once I got around the food, because I mean, growing up in like an overprivileged, like all Italian town in Jersey, and then like having parents that were way upper middle class, you know, it left you as a kid like there's something else out there. There's a whole world out there. Like, you know, you could always beg your parents for money, but why do that? I mean, they had to bust their ass as hard as they did for them to get somewhere. You don't want to be there to mooch off, and you're like, no, I'm going to do what they did. I'm going to pave my own way. It's like, just as my parents came to America, I could get to go to Japan, and all right, cool. You know, I could do the same thing. Like I could make my way in a foreign country where at the time I didn't speak any of the language. I just thought it was so neat. So I always felt that I could follow in those footsteps. So if they can make it, I can honestly say in the same context, like in a foreign country, I got to make it. I got to navigate through. It's just my way was so unorthodox. I didn't see it being hurled at me. I didn't know about these things until, you know, once they came up on me, I was like, oh, wow. And then I would have to look back and realize, Jesus, you're like the luckiest guy. You know, what 20-year-old kid is being flown over there? But then I realized later on politically what had happened and how I even got there. And it's all of it's just dumb luck. Anything I got out of it was just complete and utter stupid dumb luck that I just stumbled into. Although, you know what? Coming up at that Legends of Hamburg thing, I haven't seen Harvey Whippleman in town down Bruno. I haven't seen him in over 20 years. He was the guy. Every single week I'd walk into that Memphis studio. You would look across the lineup sheet and you see the job guys' names penciled in. He was the guy responsible for it. And eventually he got to the point where, you know, I had been hanging around there a couple of years as a job guy. Bruno would walk up to me and be like, you got two choices. He's like, you could either wrestle Tommy Rich. And then he was like, wait, cancel that. He's like, you got three choices. He goes, you can either wrestle Tommy Rich or you can wrestle Gangrel and it'll be a competitive match. Well, he wasn't Gangrel back then. Or he's like, you could get squashed by Sid Vicious in like 20 seconds because Sid's got a bum shoulder. And I mean, who gets to that, you know, where you get to like finger pick, you know, cherry pick because you're the guy that brought the ring and, you know, you've been around there so long, they actually trust you to do good, not hurt nobody, not screw nothing up and everything. So, I mean, I never thought, and I was only 20, 21 years old at the time. Who gets that kind of pull or stroke where you get to like, so, you know, I was like a mark. So I wanted to like go after the names that I hadn't wrestled before. I wanted to go after the people that I could mark off later on in my life as like one of those bucket list things, you know, before that became a buzzword.
Yeah. I mean, I fully had the whole bucket list thing that, dude, I mean, think about how long I've been wrestling at this point, and I go, I wanted to make sure I just had I had a booking somewhere where I got flown somewhere. That just happened to me now after all these years of doing it. So, I mean, I fully understand and relate to bucket list stuff like that. It took me and the fact that like I was wrestling already, like probably 15 years before I ever gigged. And I came from a place where gigging was commonplace.
Yeah, where they were just all over. They were lying with them. You know what the funny thing is? Like, it's going to sound so weird to say. Just how addicting. Like, I got a buddy of mine here locally in Jersey. He's been going at this thing for like 8 going on 9 years. Actually, you had him on the show. You know, it's so funny because I brought up to him and he goes, oh, yeah, I did that show. And I go, even you did that show. I was like, here I am. The magic number's what, 277? Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, it took this guy, right? Am I pointing to you now? It took him 277 episodes to realize we need Tony on here. We should get Tony on here. 277.
Well, you were out of the country, You were out of the country, pal. I was
out of the country. We can do this anyway. No, but after his 8-9 years in the business, talking about this buddy, and I just got through wrestling him like not even an hour ago, which is why my hair looks like a big poofy. I would have to explain this. You can relate with the long hair.
Oh yeah,
I got to explain that later. But with him, he got to do his first barbed wire match, and there's a time and place for it. They had been building this thing with him and this other guy, and and I told him even before he went in there because he's like,
give me other context clues so I can try to figure out who this is that you're talking about.
No, I'll just say it. It's Alex Riemann.
Oh,
the artist formerly known as Aaron Bradley.
Yeah, yes, Aaron. Yeah.
Yeah, Baron Badley. No chance that he actually mentioned my name when he was on here. But anyway, here's the thing. I told him, I was like, it gets addictive because you see you could get away with doing the first one and you're relatively unscathed. And then you're like, yeah, let me do another one. And let me do one after that. Let me do one after that. Like there was a spot at one time in the ring. I told him, I was like, just be quiet. Don't say anything. Don't stomp your foot. And I'm saying that as I'm picking him up. And I gave him like, the Ram thing, the headbutt on headbutt, which sounds phenomenal. And he goes, I didn't even feel that because I gave him two of them where I was just like, shh. And it's like, 200 people. So it's a smaller crowd. So you're like, shh, listen to this. You tell people and you just donk, It's the thickest bone in the entire human anatomy. That I know. So anyway, I gave him like two of those. And of course, second one, he takes a big bump and pin, 1-2, kick out, all this stuff. Anyway, I told him, I go, you see how you got away with, you figure you got away with the first and second ones, and then you just one up it, and then you go, I'm going to headbutt him like harder. And it's going to like sound better, like two Rams. And you can see where it really screws up your head because you're like, oh, that was fearless. That was painless. That was cool. You can see where guys up the ante from there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's no different than long time ago with that match, we lost the plot. It was like violence for the sake of violence. No.
It really became less about like a craft and crafting a story. And it became just like, oh, we're gonna make this pop happen and this pop happen and this pop happen. And it was more about just like the oohs and the ahs than the build and the fun of it. It's like I think I can imagine. I haven't done a whole lot of deathmatch stuff, but I can imagine how I can imagine
for you
the fun of it because like I've done tons of tables and ladders and chair spots, and those don't hurt as bad as you'd think they would. And the reactions are huge, and you're like, okay, yeah, all right. But when it comes to like going beyond that to other stuff, like I can imagine like light tubes not being that bad. I've done barbed wire. It's not that bad. Like we're tough. We can take it. Like it's probably really bad for other people, but like we have a level of callus. We have a level of callus built up.
That needs to be a word that's incorporated into wrestling in every which way, shape, or form. Because going into today, my back, it was like if I sat in a certain way, it would just feel kind of tricky and cricky and just weird. And so I went in there earlier today with this guy, and I just said, we're going to feel how my back feels. And, I'm going to do what I can to sweat my ass off in here. And it's physical. And, 1, 2, even at one point I go, snap my back over and just pin me. And that's just like a way of me punching myself saying, dude, your kick out was weak. I look like shit. Like put some effort into kicking out. Like that shouldn't be me. Even at 48 years of age, it's like, if you're not going to kick out with any kind of enthusiasm, you don't belong in a damn ring. If you don't have that much love for what you're doing and what it's like to actually bounce off the ropes. And because like I explained to you before about you and I, we got fortunate because of the region that we were born in and what we were getting into as we were kids. We were right there. You were very close to Philly. I wasn't that far from Philly at all. And the whole Northeast Jersey scene was just crazy back then. I mean, it was just so much fun. But now I'll explain how that ties into religion, like later on. That's got to be a point that I make. But There's an operative word right there, callus. So I developed this callus, and I want to keep developing that callus and have that like that sewing finger they call it, where you could take like a pin and literally just like poke at your finger, and there's no big deal because you have that. Callus needs to be a word that like all professional wrestlers need to use because your body just develops a tolerance for all the bumps and the sweating it out and just constantly working on some reverse side headlock, hammer lock, top wrist lock, sit in, tie in, switch in.
When we do stuff like this, when we call stuff, this is so normal, these hand motions and this stuff when it comes to conversations that we're having.
It's universal.
But it's universal. Ridiculously universal to us. But to anyone not in this who has never stepped inside the ropes.
You go and you wrestle a bunch of locals there in Australia. They do the exact same thing. You wrestle the Japanese young boys. They're broken the same way. They're taught all the reversals too. It's just so Mexico. They might work the right side, whatever, but this is so universal. And we're all bound together with this one thing. Like that is great. But it's like, I tell guys all the time, I was like, if you're going to do something and not interact with people or show out, there's not some kind of showmanship to the people. Like, you might as well just sit here in this wrestling, school or whatever and not bother about going anywhere else because you're just doing crap to entertain yourself. You're not doing it for any of those people out there. You might as well just do this in a wrestling school to stay in shape or as a hobby or as a way to like keep in shape because you're not doing it with any reason or rhyme. You're just doing it to pop yourself or, pop the boys or whatever. It's like AEW. I know they're on a hot streak right now. They had a great pay-per-view, and I don't understand how people are making these memes and making fun of like Tony Khan because I could show you a picture right now. It's like Onita sitting there like affectionately like just with his arm like around my head, and he's just kind of like all right, kid, thanks, because no matter what, when he comes here, I got his back, even though we're at war with each other when I'm overseas. Here's Tony Khan. The guy had over half of his roster that was factored into all the main event pictures. Like, all those guys are injured, and they went out there with what they had left, and new guys that they introduced at last minute, like these Japanese guys, and they had a banger of did they call them pay-per-views anymore? Special events, whatever.
No, well, they don't. WWE doesn't call them pay-per-views anymore. They call them premium live events. But AEW is still on pay-per-view. That the Forbidden Door was pay-per-view.
Yeah, it's okay. So, basically, with this skeleton crew and the way that things weren't planned or whatever, they go out there and they just knock it out of the park. Man, I'd want to hug my wrestlers too and say, "Yo, you guys all did a great job, man. We did it, whatever." But it's such like to that genre audience or whatever that, I want to watch AEW grow. And now I'm hearing that the ratings are decreasing. Yeah, but the live events, are there not more people attending now? Because, we're post-corona kind of sort of in our own weird way. And I want to watch the casual people, catch on. I care more about that and watching a product catch fire than I do about appeasing everybody that's on the internet and everything. I mean, there's no end goal there because eventually those people get dissatisfied and they latch onto something else. I would rather see casual people on the street going, "Hey, the other night I was watching this new place. It's called AEW, and those guys might be onto something there." Like, I would much rather hear and endure that as a pro wrestler and as a fan myself too. I'd much rather hear that than I would anything else at this point.
And I was just talking about this with Mish from Wrestling Soup the other day about how I think the way to get casual fans like invested, I think, would be to treat it like kind of like if there was a wrestling news like TV network that was just constant, like a CNN with wrestling news. And
I thought about don't you remember how the Ring of Honor fans treated Ring of Honor? They treated wrestling, they treat it like the Olympics. Like, they're going to hold up scorecards like, "Oh, that flip right there, that was 8.9. That was an 8.9. You know what I mean? Like, they treat it like the Olympics, and you never saw the core people. You never saw it expand much further beyond the core. You know what I mean? Like, For
I
all the
think
work those guys
the
put in, and as good as all those guys were inside of a ring, I wanted to watch it expand. I'm sorry, I'm like rambling.
with
the
amount of resources and money that they have, I could see it being something bigger than it is, instead of like you're playing to the audience who already knows it exists, who already know who all these people are. You have the ability to really like do some like character building. There can be some like background to these people. There can be some like news reports. And I think if there was like a whole channel that was just wrestling news reporters talking about like
it was called. It used to be called Occupation of the Indies. They still air it in Japan. And what they do is they take a 1 hour slot and they stick a lady. She's next to this frog, this puppet that this guy operates. And they've used the puppet on like indie shows over there in Japan because it's so famous. The thing's name is Nikolai. And it usually has a girl broadcasting with him. But for 1 hour, 1 full hour, they show, even if it's like a 30-second snippet of like Diamond, of like Saitama Pro, of WWS Japan, of Fight of the Ring, of Impact Bushida, of like they show like 30 seconds of a place called Neko. They show like 30 seconds of a promotion called Fighting Ultimate, and then there's a star, Crazy Kings, FUCK. And they show independents from, just the smallest indies you could imagine over there. Like I've done Shinjuku Mat Ward Pro Wrest, and that's got like that takes place on the mat without a ring. Even that 30 seconds that they've aired on Occupation of the Indies, it's like when that hour program is shown, your booking fees can jump up, what it costs to book you. I asked for a healthy buck over there because I got a whole, hey, look, I just got this back today. They screwed up, so they gave me a brand new one.
Yeah, you
imagine
sent
what
me
it's like earlier. Yeah, see, it's still got the tag on it.
Yeah, what is that? What is that? A good 10 pounds?
Yeah, at least. So I mean, that's when like no matter what in the gym, like right up in here, it's like an area I got to focus on. Which it's kind of neat because you can see it right here. Like you could see, I got the shoulders and all that crap. Maybe it's the good lighting in here. Anyway, for me to have to hold that chainsaw, but people also see it too. Like I'll not do the gimmick. And people inside of Tokyo, they know it's me anyway under the mask. These are the most sophisticated, smartened up fans on the face of the planet. But on the bookings where, a chainsaw, you got to make sure it's got gasoline and oil. And
gas prices being what they are.
Yeah, they sell it by the liter over there too. So it's like misleading when you look up there and you're like, wow, it's only $1.40 for a gallon of gas. And then you go, well, that's right. They measure it in liters. Shit.
Metric system. Metric system.
Yeah, what I was saying, like, you make it to Occupation of the Indies and you watch your booking fee increase. You watch, the money that they normally give you, you can negotiate because you're like, dude, I'm right off of Occupation of the Indies. Like, they are biting a piece of my shit. And to get on there, it's like ridden with politics because there's some people that don't. And then there's other people that do. And then, there's all this weird stuff. But long story short, if you had something like that in America that aired coast to coast, just imagine this indie group getting on there and that's like their break, like, dude, they featured us on Occupation of the Indies America for like 2 minutes. They featured our group. And you know what I mean? Like stuff like that to me is just fascinating. It's fascinating about the world of wrestling. It's fascinating about everything. But you're talking about an entire network too.
2016, I was featured a full page article all about me on Pro Wrestling Illustrated in the magazine. It was like a dream come true. And I was like, now that this comes out, I'm going to get so much more followers on social media. I'm going to be able to up my price. No one cared. Not one single.
But at least you could probably print out that article and then take it to like I could see you taking it to like, take it to Kinko's and have them ran off, and then
Oh
like
yeah, dude.
you sign them.
I used
You
to
know what I
I
did?
used to I sell them at the gimmick tables. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw Ace Darling. I saw him a few weeks back when I did that '80s wrestling con thing because he's like he's just like me. He's been close with Fierro ever since all of us were teenagers. Like,
Mm.
same thing with Pete McKay's Lower East Side Wrestling. That is where Jersey All Pro started with Fat Frank, Kane D, and his brother Angel. Like, all of us were there as teenagers. Joel Gertner was managing me when he was like 15 years old, and I was 16. Chris Canyon came through there. Billy Kidman. I could name Jason Knight. I could name like a billion names. Little Guido, all those guys. Anyway, it was just like, you always look at like, and there's like this certain mystique kind of to this day behind Pete McKay's and Lower East Side because so many people came through there and that kind of folklore. But you go back and you look at those shows and oh my God, they were atrocious. They were terrible. But it was us in the 90s trying out moonsaults for the first time. What did we know? We were just a bunch of goofballs trying our best to, do the best that we could. But just imagine there was one channel. I'm not talking about a YouTube channel. I'm talking about a channel that aired nationally all over this country. Just imagine stateside here in America, if they had something like an Occupation of the Indies. Like, that would be so fun. Coast to coast, wow, look at that. That group is airing this. There's me in that group.
I mean, I'm not necessarily saying like independent wrestling companies being featured on this and having their wrestling featured as much as it just being like independent, like not independent wrestling, but let's say like wrestling news, like a wrestling news channel, like Brian Alvarez and like Dave Meltzer and like Mike Johnson. It's just like
I love
sure,
Mike
all the time.
Is it just me? Oh man, shoot, I shouldn't be cutting you off here, but I gotta say, is it just me or is Mike Johnson like the only human being that's ever been a journalist and remain like so heat free, and you can't find anyone else say a bad word about him. And if anybody has anything bad to say about him, it's some guy. It's like, no, he just treats you like the loser that you are, or whatever. Like it's almost amazing. Most people just bite their tongue. They're like, oh, I don't want to get into it. I don't want to talk about it. And it's just like, bro, dude, how'd you get sideways with that guy?
My experience with Mike Johnson, I'm gonna just tell you about the first time I met him. We were talking. It was I was at a show that I wasn't booked on, and he was like, "Hey, you're good. Why aren't you on this show?" And I was like, "Wow, the guy who everybody goes to, like the guy who knows everything, the guy who's like got his fingers on the pulse of like what wrestling news is. Anybody who knows any wrestling news or reports any wrestling news got it from Mike Johnson. That guy told me I'm good.
Would you believe?
I'm fine with never hearing another bad review of anything I've ever done before. I'm really never going to hear another person hate on me or like make me feel shame for anything ever because this Mike Johnson told me I was good.
And the weirdest thing is some of the very first shows he ever went out and photographed. Look at this. Let me see. Let me see if I could do this without knocking over the camera because the VHS I wanted to look. I was like looking into the camera and this VHS was Pete McKay's Lower East Side. It's me and Danny Inferno when he was like 15 years old.
Yeah.
And he's riding with me going here. And we're just sitting there cutting promos and acting silly as teenage kids do.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Johnson, that was like one of his first places he ever went to and like photographed. Amazing. I didn't even know he was there at the time. But you look close and there's Homicide when Homicide was like, teenage kid getting in a lot of trouble and stuff before he like settled down. Jay Lova started there. I mean, like so many people started in that gritty, grungy Lower East Side wrestling. It's so weird.
He's like an actor now and stuff, Jay Lover.
Yeah. Like full blown, like he gets gigs everywhere. I'm supposed to go with him. One of the jumping bomb angels, Yamazaki. She has a restaurant that's in New York, and it's like me, him, Fufu. We're trying to get together, like Gertner, and I could sit there and name drop all the brothers from back in the day. We're all trying to get together and hang out, visit. Kurt Schimmel, like all these people. If you know any of those names from yesteryear, I mean, just imagine a bunch of us just sitting around kicking it, talking about old times, and just imagine me finding the VHS of this stuff. Like, if I was to sit there and tour and show you what I've been working on with like a VCR and that kind of thing, you'd be like blown away. Like, how did that survive? And you have to understand, lived in the Mid-South for like 16, 17 years. All this stuff sat in crates at my parents' house. When I was a kid, I would collect these things and I would record these things. And just imagine coming across, yourself all those years later. Same thing with when I went down to Tennessee. If it wasn't like, the old Memphis territory house shows, if it wasn't that, it was me every weekend saying, hey, going to the office and asking Lawler, hey, man, these guys aren't competition. It's okay if I go and work this. And he'd be like, yeah, you're not booked here. So, okay. And then off I was to do that. Unless they burn the town in some kind of way, you would never get in trouble. But it's so cool to like look back at even this horrible, gritty, grainy VHS. At least it exists. So I'm so glad to put it on the DVD and then put it into a hard drive, even though hard drive itself has been a pain in the ass. I had one go out on me, a 5 terabyte drive, and you can imagine all the stuff encapsulated on that. It's just like, I don't want to lose it. And then they bring it to you and they go, hey, the estimate's like $999. And you're like, I don't care. It beats going back through all that old VHS and ripping all that stuff, all the old DVDs. And so it's like, give it to me now. I'd rather have it like that. It's amazing, man, that any of that stuff actually exists. It happens all the time. I do random Japanese indies. I worked for a place called Battle Aid, and it was ran by Raiden. And I never thought any of those shows existed. Then one after another, I'm seeing them listed on Japanese websites, and I'm like, I want to watch that. I was like, that's a lot of fun. It's just me wrestling as me. Look, Ma, no mask. Get to have a good time watching yourself and cringe while you're doing it.
So, like, I didn't want to ignore where you were saying you were mentioning that it would come back to religion at some point. Where was the lines there, and how did they connect?
Okay, because the word religion, if you take out the L and the I, you're left with region, meaning where you are born. Possibly, it's denoted to you what you are from inception. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, without choice of the matter, or not through like brainwashing, but just because, you're raised around it, you're going to lean to one thing or you're going to be rebellious against another. Mm-hmm. I always looked at it that way. Like you and I, region wise, were right around this area, right around Pennsylvania, Philly, New Jersey. So like we didn't know any better breaking in. We just thought, that's the way it is. You got to try new and dangerous crap. Where there's like, it's like a culture shock. When I went down to Tennessee, I was 19, 20 years old, and I'm watching guys in the second, third, fourth match, and they're spending 10 minutes hiding a chain down the front of their tights, and then the referee goes to check, and they throw it on the mat and step on it, and then the fans tell the referee it's under his boot, and then the guy kicks it outside the ring to his heel manager. The manager has it, and then the referee asks the manager, and he puts the chain in his mouth, and he's like, I ain't got it. Like guys would sit there and do that. Or guys would sit there for like 5 minutes. He pulled my hair, ref. And I'm like, oh my God. Like compared to where I came from in Jersey, it was like I had to push all the way back. Anytime, every night, if I did a flying elbow, threw somebody into the ropes, spun around, gave him like a flying elbow. Like Lawler would be like, oh, what are you doing with those dance steps in there? Just throw an elbow. Throw an elbow. Just go out there and just wrestle. Stop trying to reinvent the wheels. Quit trying to come up with all this flashy stuff. If you want to be like ECW, go back home and do that shit there. It's just like, and at the time I was like, I just wanted to try new stuff. And the same thing happened when I got to Japan. They're like, What does it say when we got Black Mummy, White Mummy, and Iron Mummy, and you're Iron Mummy, and there's your partners, and they're mummies. Why the fuck are you doing high cross bodies and moonsaults, and what are you thinking?
Mhm.
And they're like, learn your basics, learn how to, wrestle. I was like, sucks. When am I going to get to do any of the fun stuff and I didn't realize they would tell me back then, it's too much. Grab a chin lock, and I was like, these old folks, man, they don't know what the hell they're talking about. Now I look at things that guys do and I'm like, you might want to save yourself, save your body. I mean, like, even the AEW roster, right? How many of those guys are out of commission now? And it's like, they don't wrestle 6-7 days of the week, but the stuff they do is stuff that they're doing to, stay relevant but I looked at the Young Bucks and I'm like, I don't see how at 40 their bodies are going to hold up with all the, more bang for your buck. It's just death on the knees,
They're close to it. How old are they now?
Yeah, exactly. They're closing in on it. And they're still doing it. But the Hardys, I'm like, there has to be a cutoff point where the whole, read the article that X-Pac and Chris Jericho put out where they were like, right from the get-go, people were saying that's too much. And Jericho walked away going, what an asshole thing for that Nick Bockwinkel guy to say that I'm doing too much. And that was in 92. He's like, he just didn't realize it then. He didn't realize it until years down the line that, yeah, you're right. It is just, there's no way you're going to continue. And with you breaking in with CZW, these guys had to realize, hey, 4 or 5 years of this shit. I'm out of here. I'm done,
Well, I was looking at, I was mentioning the other day, bro. Like, I mean, look at the early 2000s CZW. Look at the class I came from. Look at the people who I started with. So look, none of those people are still in it. Like, I'm still the only one. Like, I mean, besides like Claude's still around.
Yeah.
And like Robbie's still around. But like,
and those are like two of the nicest guys I met out there too.
It's tough to say that you're gonna find a lot of people from CZ. Like, those people were also people who were over in CZW. I wasn't. I never got my full over. I never got the like green light, be who you're gonna be, because I didn't know who I was gonna be yet. But I never got that in my time in CZW. I got to be just like some student who jobbed to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same way with me. With the old, everybody's like, "Oh yeah, you work Memphis." Like, I was a job guy, lucky to be booked, and then they realized long into it that they just took advantage of it. So it was like 2-3 times under, different masks or whatever. Japan wound up doing the same thing with me, but that was a way for them to save money, have me do it as brother price, and not have to worry about me being paid double. They knew I was already there, so it was like a brother price. And then there was at least 5-6 different indies there that were all using Uchu Meijin Power, the alien outer space, and then the Demon Oya, Uno Dos, using those guys with the rubber mask, the red shirt, and the bib overalls. It was just bizarre. And then they would Black Mummy, White Mummy, Red Mummy, Blue Mummy, and Clone of Mummy, and just the Evil Mummy, Babyface Mummy, and all that other goofy. When guys were having fallen outs and starting up their own, because everybody saw the success of new independents popping up, so everybody, it seemed like, was starting, up their own indie. That's before the bubble burst overseas. Well, like going into like 98, 99, the bubble just about to burst here in America and the States, because anybody with a ring could put it up in their backyard and start their own. And then that was it. We have a new wrestling federation. It's just like, that's some shit that person made up or whatever. But like, it was still another place. Like, people sit there, they want to bitch about Ian Rodden. If that guy set up a ring next weekend, they would be in the ring wrestling for him, even though it's been exposed, like how much crap that he's, ripped people off from. He's been doing that for so many years. How many times is that guy going to go out of business and come back? But if he sets up a ring in some parking lot next week, I guarantee you people are going to show up and try to work it. And I'll guarantee you there'll be fans there willing to buy a ticket.
Because fans are paying attention to whatever he's doing. It seems
Yeah.
like he's discovered not that he's discovered, but he's used everybody who's been somebody over the last 20 years.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, it almost gives it a buyer, makes it okay, but it's just a place to wrestle. I'm not trying to drag this guy anymore through the mud. At this point, I don't care. But you know who it is. The guy sets up a ring. It's basically where it is where he lives. And it's got one friggin' working sink. He probably washes his balls in the sink and like dumb shit. But it's like, it's a place for these people to wrestle. So they figure, oh, cool. I get to be seen on IWTV and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
What's the point? You're burning the candle at both ends and you're not even being paid for your friggin' work. At a certain point, you got to like cut it off and be like, I want to get paid for this shit. Most guys are still, feel lucky at 40 years of age to be booked. It's like, no, that's not what wrestling is. That's not what it should be. You should be getting paid for your efforts because you know damn well who is ever running this thing is that they're getting paid.
This is a constant pay to play business. Like I don't think, bro.
Yeah, and they'll just keep taking advantage of it because there'll be people that are, sure, okay, use me.
I mean, the kayfabe of it, or as I'm trying to get this started, and I hope you apply it to yourself too. I've been saying because the lines are so blurred with social media, real and work shoot. I've been calling it gray fabe. I've been calling it gray fabe because that describes what gray, like the gray area between work and shoot.
That and callus. What callus like replace ring rust? And there you go. Those are words that should be in the wrestling vernacular from now till eternity. Callus, as far as like not having ring rust, and that should be words that are added to the vocabulary from now to eternity.
Want to get it to trend. I wanted to get it to be a thing that I contribute to the wrestling business.
It.
Hashtag, right. But I'm saying, like, I'm not going to come out here and lie and say, oh, well, like I'm making my nut worth. I'm not. I'm paying to be. I am a mark. I am just as bad as the wrestling fans who show up at shows and pay to see those shows. I'm paying to be on shows. I'm a fucking mark, and I'm not going to. I'm not going to kayfabe.
Yeah, then you expect someone's going to turn around and give you fair dollar and pay you top dollar for you to wrestle for them for what? What?
They should, but it's not. It's not happening.
It's like
if I want to be in this business, I have to do this because somebody. Okay, for sure, I'm getting paid, but it's not breaking even on what it costs me to. Dude, I put so much money into what I'm wearing, my body. I'm a professional at this. I bring a whole production with me.
But it's like after so long in wrestling, do you not want to get paid? I mean, say whatever you want to about the range. And I loved his work in Ring of Honor when, they did the whole Special K thing and everything. But even that guy Deranged, he like put the brakes on. He goes, if you're going to want me to come out and wrestle for you, pay me like a man. And he's like, don't be giving me no chicken feed money or anything like that. He's like, when Ring of Honor was white hot, I was there. And it's not like my skills have diminished. Yeah, I've gotten a couple of years older. He's like, this is ridiculous. Pay me like a man. He's like, otherwise, I'm not doing this. I'm just like, they're always going to find somebody who's willing to damn near pay to do it or feel some kind of loyalty. It's like, I couldn't believe it when, and it all came out that Ian Rotten had owed Jake Chris like $6,000. Ian can be very persuasive. Oh, we need this money. I ain't got no money. If you could just take care of the boys, I'll get you next time. Whatever the hell he does. I can't believe he has person one standing in his corner. But as much as you want to complain about it or even draw attention to it, it's going to go on and on and on and continue. No matter what. Because there'll be other people going, well, CM Punk came from there. Chris Hero, he wasn't making much money there. And they'll do it. And it's just like, until you break that chain. But there'll still be enough people left over who are willing to pay to be on the show that'll go down there for next to nothing and do it. For next to nobody, for no real reason. Right. I understand if you're trying to develop your own callus, but it just... When you watch some of the stuff these people do, you're like, that's just
like my level of risk versus reward versus anyone else who's doing this is different. Like I was coming back to wrestling from brain surgery, and somebody asked me what my price was, and I told them, and they said, why would I pay that when this guy and that guy come down from Rochester, New York, and I give them $20, and they put themselves up in a hotel because they're fucking marks, and the business is ruined. The business, like when I say like how often, and I'm sure we've watched it happen at the same time. Well, being a mark used to be something that wrestlers would kind of like look down on you for. But like
nowadays it's the norm. Or it used to be something derogatory. Okay. Yeah, everybody just shrugs off and they go, "Oh, well, we're all marks." Yeah, like true to some extent. But if you think I'm going to give up
levels,
if you think I'm going to give up my regular job on weekends to go down there and wrestle, and I'm not going to tell you who or where, but somebody made me an offer, and I'm like, one, I don't feel good and cool stepping in that building, and two, it's like, good luck with this new Fed that you're trying to launch or whatever, but I'm sorry, man, I'm not taking a night off from a regular job, throwing away a Friday, Saturday night when I could be making sure that restaurants run, the way it needs to be. Which, just so you know, as a sidebar, I'm in the midst of trying to get my own Domino's overseas in Japan. So it's just like, killing time in America alone. You need a regular job anyway. So there you go. Then you just sit there and put up with Indian and Pakistani drivers fighting with each other over deliveries. It's like you roll with it, but at least it's regular and honest work. I'm getting aside from the point. Anyway, if you expect me to give that up on weekends, the kind of money those guys make on weekends, just working off the app alone, for what? I'm a 48-year-old grandfather. It's just kind of ridiculous at this point for me to do it, just to still have that callus and be like, oh, I wrestled the other night. There is a local wrestling school 5-10 minutes from where I live, from this duplex, that I can go to and go there and have my fill of being a fan, jumping around like I'm a kid on a trampoline.
There's nothing that can replace the feeling of being over. There is nothing that can replace the feeling of that live audience and that reaction. Like that's a drug that hooked me really young. That scratching that validation itch. And I get it sometimes in comedy now, but it's completely different. I mean, I feel like in comedy, and I've said this a million times, in comedy, it's like when it comes to acting, like I think I'm pretty good at it. With comedy, I think I'm pretty funny and I'm pretty good at it. With wrestling, I know I'm good at it. Like it's a thing that I know. But the thing is, like, acting is going to pay me more. Comedy is going to pay me more. And wrestling is just going to treat me like I'm just some other nerd who is going to come in and do it for nothing. So I might as well take less than what I want if I want to do anything.
Yeah. You settle for less because, you just, I call it all the time parlaying passion. It's like, not only have you got this passion thing, but then you realize too, hey, I'm getting in good shape doing this. So it's like, so then that kind of overrides you caring about the money. But if I'm going to stop what I'm doing, sacrifice the time that I spend overseas, missing out on all kinds of, Christmas, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, Thanksgiving, Halloween, all this stuff, kids' birthdays, my birthday, all that stuff. It's like, it's going to be worth my while for me to go and do. And I know that there's people out there like, don't get me wrong, the money helps, but money doesn't wind up being everything, even though it's your provided living, because you're like, I got enough out of this deal. I'm still far ahead on this deal. Don't need to burn the candle at both ends. That's why whenever people go, well, how long are you going to Japan for? How do I put into words? Well, until I don't know, until I drain the tank here, until I start feeling, my body starts feeling awful. And then it's like, oh God, get me through tonight. that's when I know to tell them, all right, let's wrap it up. And, I'll be back here in a few months. Let me just let my body relax. Because, I mean, over in Tokyo alone, you do 5, 6, you do 4, 5, 6 nights a week, 7 if you want them, because there's always some wrestling thing going on. Tokyo's got hundreds upon hundreds of indies. Anybody can look in Google and find the names of various indies all over. Use Google Translate. So when I put it in guys' hands that are like, oh yeah, look, if I just come with you to your house and if I just hang out with you, I'm like, start now, start to apply now to all these indies just so that you're on the radar. So you tell them, hey, when I get here, if you want, I'll go down to your dojo and work out and show you my shit. I'm going to do my talking here. I'm going to do it in the ring. I mean, that's cool. But in the meantime, while you're waiting for that to happen, it's right there at your fingertips. Copy, paste, send it to, whoever, whatever office. Now they gummed up the works because even Pro Wrestling Noah in Japan right now, I love Nozawa. He's been my partner. He's been my opponent, hundreds of matches probably. And this has been over the course of I started seeing him 20 years ago, and he's the booker. But telling people, hey, for $5,000, you come over here to Japan and wrestle, and we put you up and everything. It's such an obvious cash grab. Is it to the point now where they gave up on drawing in any new fans? Have they given up on drawing any fans and just decided, the boys are going to finance this shit anyway because they're as big of marks as the marks are? What, have we not all taken a humongous step backwards and not lived to see it? We all see it,
Mm-hmm. I hate for this to be such a downer. I really dislike
because we're talking about wrestling, and that's why. If we're talking about something else, anything else, the new Beavis and Butthead.
Oh yeah, I watched that. That was hilarious.
That's a spoiler alert. I don't give a shit. That's the scene with them in the Porta-John is one of the funniest, most prolonged jokes, which you could almost feel Beavis's agony as he's screaming out, but it's just so funny for too many reasons. You're like, you've got to be kidding. And it just doesn't end. It keeps going. And you're like, you almost feel his discomfort. The scene with the Porta-John, but especially the white privilege, because they have no comprehension level, right?
Yeah, like,
so the whole white privilege thing was one of the funniest. They just take it out of context and they're like, "Oh, cool, we have white privilege." They just run around, just do whatever they want.
This era, it's so funny. It's that's the perfect I'm a big South Park fan,
just to remind you that it's just no different than. Did you see the latest Texas Chainsaw Massacre with the millennial guys try anything and you're canceled, bro? And he's just so he just takes his chainsaw and just chops up everybody.
I only saw a couple of the scenes from it. I didn't watch the whole film, but I felt like there was some really creative and neat kills. If you're a big horror guy, I'm a huge horror fan.
Yeah, there was, but I like to point out the goofs in it. Dude, you saw a dozen actors and actresses, right? And you see them run for their lives. And then they come up to the windows. They come up to the windows in the movie, and they're just banging on the window, you look close, and there's a guy rattling the window. It's you're trying to get away from a guy with a chainsaw who you've already watched butcher a half dozen of your friends, and here he comes for you and a dozen more of your friends. You would jump to the goddamn window. You're trying to fight for your life. What is this? Did all the actors get together and universally say, this is going to be shit, so we're all going to look like shit anyway? Let's just give them shit, Well,
I think that, and going back to wrestling for one quick second, I think that there's certain parts of calling matches and making things look kind of shitty, where you're just oh, it's pro wrestling, and people just kind of accept that this is what this shit thing looks like.
Yeah, what? Everybody else does it. Everybody knows it's fake. It doesn't matter if my punch misses by. It's at least try to get into something. At least use some effort. Don't use that as an excuse everybody knows it's fake anyway. But then why bother doing anything out there? What?
Well, like, I mean, my thought process on like stomping, and like, I wanted to make sure for the longest time that I wasn't stomping on my punches. I wanted to make sure I wasn't stomping on my strikes, because that's what people think is the fake part. So that they think that it's not real because you're stomping. But like, you can tell it to my jaw. People have been stomping and punching me in my face for 23 years, and I can't eat sandwiches without pain.
Here's the thing, and you God, what a terrible subject change. There's no way to like bridge this gap, but it's something I want to harken back to. You understood the whole thing about me saying like religion, region, basically meaning the places that you're placed in, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If you grew up in an environment where everybody that you know, everybody that you see, all the kids at school, all they do is put down professional wrestling, it's not going to skew your reality toward it. You're like, you start to think at times, well, maybe this weird, obscure thing, maybe it's only something that I like, but what the hell? It's what I like, you know? Mm-hmm. So then it makes it okay in your mind to just be very passive about shit. But then something cool will happen, or somebody will hit something really hard or lay something in. You're like, God, I want all my casual friends to see this so they can see that wrestling isn't, it isn't fake, or it isn't, you know, or we ourselves, we get so into it, our adrenaline's up so high that we don't care about hitting somebody in the face, or, you know, your friends. Anyway, you ever notice you work tighter with your friends, you tend to hurt your friends more than just casual other people. You go, screw it, if that hurt him, he don't belong in the ring. And you just chop back and forth or whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, but we're all bound by this weird universe. I mean, next time you're around, look around at dressing. All these people, there's no other way in life fathomable. Any of these people would be in the same room as each other.
Right.
They share this weird obsession, this weird love for this strange thing that's so obscure, and it's trying to look real, but everybody knows it's fake. And you know what I mean? Like, there's all that, like, all jumbled into one. And like, all right, I talk about your situation. I've mentioned to you too many times, obviously off air and everything else. Like, it was a huge inspiration. The guy had brain surgery where they shaved part of your head, and I was thinking, how are promoters not looking at that going, what a fucking story to tell? This guy survived brain surgery, fell in the shower, and he came back, and he's able to perform still to a good level, high level wrestling. I've seen you. You've got skill. You know how good you are.
Better.
When you saw me, I thought
it was like they gave me the surgery and like they somehow implanted how to be better at wrestling. I don't know how, but somehow in like 2012, 2013, when I returned to wrestling, I was better at it than I was before.
Yeah,
I don't know how that
got
happened.
older, wiser, and it probably just cleaned some of the junk out of your head or something.
Yeah, probably.
But like, I always saw that, and I was like, how do any promoters around Pennsylvania not see? I mean, if you're a person on the street and you heard this guy had brain surgery, you're just your casual fan. You're throwing a bunch of shit at the wall to see what it'll stick anyway. What a babyface story. What a comeback. And I sat there locally and watched the place that we were working for at the time. I'm not trying to like bash or trash on any of those people, but I'm like, how do you not see this? It's right in front of you. How do you not take advantage of this? I myself am inspired. I saw the guy, you know, first heard the word that, you know, you fell in the shower, and I was like, I myself see it. And I mean, how casual fan wise, the minute that you go to a doctor and they find out that you wrestle, there's somebody in there that's got to make like a bigger deal about it. But it just like fell on deaf ears because everybody we were working had their own agenda.
Because I wasn't in the cool kids club, and I still am not in the cool kids club. I don't know how to get in the cool kids club. I figure being nice enough for long enough, and someone will allow me access to the cool kids club. But no, I am my own club of my own cool kids. And the person that wound up, and you know, it's not to bury anybody, but this is what happened. Here, I'm going to premise this whole story by saying, so
I spent 16, 17 years in Memphis. At the time, I'm frequently going to Japan, but I'm like, trying to be cool about that, not trying to be so in your face about it and everything. And because I was living with and screwing and all that shit, a fiance at the time or whatever, that co-owns or owned the place or whatever. I was like, first things first. I remember we were down in Delaware, and you go, why is the most experienced guy not booked? And I was like, because just, they need a referee. I didn't have the heart to tell you at the time. And I don't want to get involved with all the backstage bullshit and all the shit that's going on with it. It was a way to keep myself out of trouble, out of harm's way. Because, there's going to be all that resentment and everything, which I felt from a lot of that old WPW crew. They're like, oh, God, look at this guy. Who's he? Dude, if only then I could have pulled out a resume or pulled out my own, like, cagematch.net where it's like, here, and here. Like,
What's weird about it, man, is like, when you picture like wrestling vet, or when you hear it, when you see when people like us who are inside the wrestling business think of a veteran of this sport, we don't like picture a nice person, like, yeah. And that's something that I think you and I are maybe changing that perception.
Probably because of who we've dated in the past. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're not here to trash on nobody. We're not here to trash on no one. It's just the truth. It's just the way that it's been.
It doesn't serve us. It doesn't serve us to look back. It doesn't serve us to look back and be like,
it does no good. You lived and you learned. And
she didn't let me. No, that was then. I'm not that person, and it doesn't matter. That experiences. All of those experiences and anything I had been through as far as like not getting pushed or not being the right guy in the right place at the right time, not having the right friends, all of that stuff taught me the lessons that I need to learn to be who I am right now. And who I am right now is the raddest dude I've ever met. And I have nothing to complain about.
Yeah. I mean, it's a means to an end. It's the way that you got there and everything, which I just noticed by glancing up here. You remember that cartoon, The Snorks? I had the snork thing going on.
Oh, yeah.
Friggin' hair. What else are you supposed to do? In all honesty, I don't know how you cope with this, but how am I supposed to deal with that? It hadn't been cut in friggin' 8 years, right?
Dude, so I still every time I mentally picture you, I never picture you with long hair. Like it's somehow like I still picture you with the short hair. But then I see you again, and I'm like, oh yeah, there you go. But I haven't had short hair since I was a little kid. I think I was in high school when I grew my hair long.
Let me explain something to people when they want to bring up man bun, and then it's weird because with the lighting, the way it's hitting my head, it looks like there's a. But if you look at it, you can see where my hairline is. Mm-hmm. Which, I mean, and with the dye job and everything else, it kind of looks like there's like stubble here, and then, the blonde, the highlights and everything. It's so, because, the mask comes to like here, like right in there, and does this. I got a couple new masks made and everything. It's so anybody could look at it and be like,
do you gig above that when you're?
Yeah, but I mean, when you 9 out of 10 times because he uses the mist, and there's so much mist being used that between the red and the green and everything else, you barely have to fucking gig anything. Or if you gig the night before, you just touch it or rub at it, and with the sweat and everything, and then it goes over the top of the mask, which makes it look even cooler. But then you got to wash it all out because you don't want that disgusting rusty smell to it. But yeah, I figured this was a way to separate me from anybody else that's ever done the leather thing. We thought of a more modernized way to go about doing it. And, Pogo was a huge fan of Leatherface anyway. So he was always like, that wasn't even his real hair in the movie. And I'm like, well, this is just easier for me to friggin' dump a bunch of conditioner in it and then sweat it out as I'm wrestling. And then it's cool because then your hair like smells like strawberry and shit. But,
I use coconut.
Yeah, I mean, you don't get the water damage you would on your hair anyway. But the thing I try to explain to people is if you're going to do the man bun thing, that's safest because look, see the chair that I'm in? If you sit there with it in a ponytail like this, you go to get up, you can feel it pulling from your back. I carry around a bag. I carry around my bag everywhere. It's got everything from e-cigarettes to drinks to money to ID to all my stuff's all together, right? So you have the bag over your shoulder like this, and it's just going to yank and pull on the ponytail. Then you're driving, same thing. Or you're riding a train, same thing. You can feel the back of it. You can feel it. Look at how long the ponytail itself is. Mm-hmm. It's literally, you know how people go, oh, I got hair down to my ass. No, literally, it's down to my ass. So, I mean, yeah, if you tuck in your shirt, you can feel it pulling out of your friggin' belt, and all that shit too. Not to get too graphic, you go to take a dump and
you don't want to dump right in your hair. Yeah, you don't.
You literally have to pull it over to one side to assure that you will not.
It's like when you're taking a piss. It's like taking a piss when you got a tie on. You flip the tie over your shoulder.
Yeah, I damn near rather my hair be in my friggin' tunnel than I would it be down the crack of my ass. It's just, I don't know. Anyway, there's no other way to style it, no way to go about doing it. You're going to feel it pulling and yanking out the back of your head.
Yeah, dude, man bun's the most practical. I was doing it before it was even called a man bun. I started putting it in a bun
far before
I was just putting it. Because the hair tie stays tighter when it's up multiple times.
Yeah.
So
and in the ring working out, every time you go to kick out, every time that you're on your back and you feel it, like, you try to get up off your back, you could feel it like yanking out from underneath. Guys will step on your ponytail. If you got it up in a man bun, hey, not only that, side headlock. Try to side headlock somebody with a friggin' ponytail. What a pain in the ass. You got to hold it a certain way. Top of the head, hey, you got that, you could damn near control. It's a stem. It's a friggin' turnip hanging off someone's head. It just makes it much easier. I mean, everything about it. You fall asleep. No way. No way I'm laying on top of my ponytail. You could feel it yanking as you're trying to pull your head up on the pillow. There's so many things that factor in. I remember that goofy homeless Jimmy guy. He toured with us over in Japan. He's like, you should just brush it on out in the shower, man. That's what I used to do. You look, and he's got 2 tiny strips of hair, and it's just like, right on, and you're completely bald. It's like, maybe I shouldn't listen to that advice.
Well, I
was a big Smashing Pumpkins fan. So, the hair where it's just, dyed right here. It's only the crown. And then when I go to touch it up, the front all stays, what are you supposed to do with hair that long? A lot of people go, oh, cut it. It's like, no, you don't know what a career is. That's why you can say that. When it's your thing to dress up in a rubber mask and chainsaw and chase around Japanese people, you tend to take it a lot more serious about, hair. And it makes it so much easier than that disgusting, itchy fucking that wig used to get on my last nerves, man. And I mean, it's just so much easier. You man bun it and then, slide the mask over your face and then let the hair all fall over the mask. It's just so much easier than it is wrestling with your whole head enclosed in friggin' rubber, plus the wig on top of it, making it all itchy. Even if you have the shorter your hair, the worse it feels. The worst.
Sounds like a nightmare. But man, like you were saying, the whole like carrying the accessories to the ring with you and stuff. Like for the last year, this drum, I carry this drum with me to the ring every single match.
Yeah, and you open every show with it too.
Yes.
Look, I'm even a fan. I'm even a fan of the show, and it took me this long to get on here. God damn, what a loser.
But the way I look at this as a part of what we're doing, what are inside of the match, like me drumming to the ring and inside of the ring is to show how this is a ceremony to me. This means what religion is to me. This is warrior shit. This is like some medieval. This is where I go to war.
And I try to tell anybody that listen, it seems so funny to me that my friends who are anti-religious, like, or, you know, they're not a believer in anything at all. Mm-hmm. They are so much more opinionated and outspoken than the people that they're like, oh, they're Jesus people. It's like, it's funny to me. I don't hear the Jesus people going on and on like you guys do about how, oh, religion, politics, oh, religion's for people to fight over and all that shit. I never push my beliefs on nobody. You wouldn't know what my beliefs are until you actually found out or I told you. I'm not in your face. Religion worked for me. Finding Jesus, Lord and Savior. And hey, that worked for me. I'm not saying that's going to work for everybody. So I wish, like, you know, if it's going to work for you, I hope to God it works out because it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool thing to fall back on. It's a really good thing when you pray and you don't expect anything in return. That's the best you could make it. You know, where you run out of friends and family and everybody else that you thank constantly, and you just glance up and you go, hey, thanks, God. That was pretty cool. Thank you for this. Thank you for my meal. You know what I mean? Like, myself, the guy that wrestles Nick Mondo, huge, you know, over the top religiously, in a way, not in your face ever. Nobody would know that about him unless they actually got to know him. So when I was wrestling over in Japan, he'd always be my voice of reason. You know, how you holding up? You're not doing anything crazy, right? You know, all that kind of stuff. But, you know, it's he and I, when you have a career that's over there, your outlook on things are, you know, Japan, like he pointed out in his documentary, Japan is a good place to go to air out a lot of your head, to just take in and analyze and think about things. Japan is a great place to, you know, whatever it is that you want to discover, especially about yourself. It's quiet. Even if you speak the language, everybody's to themselves. Nobody really goes out of the way to bother anyone. Even if you are loud or rude, you're just going to run across the wrong person if you are. Nobody oversees.
It's a bucket list thing for me to walk the streets of Japan till I get lost. That's what I've always wanted to do that.
Because it doesn't remind you of anything.
It doesn't remind me of anything except for the fact that I've always wanted to do that.
I always wanted to take some kind of random picture and do that. And I remember messaging you that picture when I was over there.
You and I had that conversation.
Yeah, and I'm wearing the Cory Kastle t-shirt. So I mean, I was wearing the faction shirt.
Okay.
When I would have to say, I'd sit there and do commentary on your matches. And the funniest thing is you guys would come over to my table and be like, all right, guys, listen, I don't want no problems with anybody. You know, if you're going to commentate, you're going to help me do the commentary, please do so. But please stay unbiased, you know, and not break the rules out here. You know what I mean? Like, there was all that, and that was so much fun. But never at any point did I, like, put myself over, because it was all about the talent and that kind of thing. It was just such a weird place to be. And I knew going back up here to Jersey, I'm like, I'm going to have to do all this crap all over again. Like, Did
you see that I got that logo tattooed on me?
Did you really?
Oh, yeah.
Team New Era.
Yep. Right,
I hope you still keep in touch with everybody, too.
For the most part, I mean, I don't talk to Pat anymore, but that's just because he kind of faded away. I know Matt still talks to him. Matt still talks to him a little bit. The funny thing is Dave Prazak tweeted the other day, Dinmock and Matt Bomboy, and that's it. Like, he just tweeted their names, and I was like,
really?
Oh, okay, what's up with that? And then, like, Eddie Kingston, like, retweeted it and quoted it and put the Bash Brothers from Mighty Ducks, a little gif of those guys. And Dave, I was like, all right.
Dave Prazak, at one point, he was like, I doubt Onita started FMW on his last $400. I'm like, do you know how many times that story and the foundation of that story has been said to me? You know how many times over the years they beat me in the head with that story? I know to a dollar by this point, you know, and what it cost, how he financed it, how he borrowed money from friends and all this stuff. basic case in point is the guy took his last $400, started up his own indie, borrowed a shitload of money from other people, this, that, and the other. But in 5 years, they were legitimately selling out baseball stadiums. Who can do that with an indie? Nobody. And there's a reason that it had a certain appeal, and it gets lost so much in the translation. That's why you have the American scene and the death matches and guys not having it's death defying. It's not supposed to be anybody dies. It's supposed to be death defying. It defies death. Ooh, we were talking about today, even up there, working out the local wrestling school in Lake Hiawatha, Jersey. I was talking about watch those old matches where the ring is strung up with barbed wire. Pay attention to how few times they hit the barbed wire and how they constantly tease it. And here we are thinking that we've evolved and how that won't work no more. And they did they barely even touched the barbed wire until one of them took a bump into it. And I'm like, that's the way it should be. That's the way it should have stayed.
It was an art craft for sure.
And it was. Yeah, how many years did that save on Onita and Pogo's backs and knees and their shoulders and everything else? They found a way after the high level that they performed at for so many years. Onita's knees were destroyed because he was the top Japan, light heavyweight, and they were competing against Tiger Mask and Dynamite Kid, considered two of the greatest ever in their series. But I mean, these people were competing with them. So Pogo, here they are in their 40, just entering into 40. And, it saved them all those years, and they drew huge houses. Well, if anything, prolonged their careers. It definitely, saved them a lot of injuries and it wasn't until they started taking asinine bumps, you're like, oh, God, that's where they started getting screwed up, when they would one-up it.
All right, I'm going to give you the opportunity right now. To speak your mind freely as if this was your own podcast, and say or ask me anything you'd like to say or ask me.
Yeah, man. Something I've always, had to, for you yourself, you're just simply going to get noticed, and it's not, a matter of time, whether it takes now or 10 years or 15 years from now, and you're still doing it. I mean, it's just a matter of time. If not that, at least you got to go in there and do it. But I mean, what at this point keeps you motivated and going and still going? And at the level that you are, you're not a kid anymore. What is the actual motivation? Is it that it's a matter of eventuality, that it's just, it'll happen for you somewhere along the way? Or
no, it's not like that. I wish it was. I wish that was the thing, but I think,
or is it still that much? There's so many layers to this question. Or is it still something that you love pursuing, that you just love hitting the ropes, love getting in there, love doing the bookings, love the company you're with, and love the people that you're working with? Is it all that? Or is there I'm going to get discovered.
It's the rewards that come with the reactions. It's the rewards that come with the memories that you make for these people. It's the rewards that, like, when I get in the back and I hug the people that I work with and I taught them something that they didn't already know. That's important to me. It's important to me to go to have. It's kind of neat that not every match that I have is on Cage Match, and it's not like on the record, but it matters immensely for those like 40, 50, 60 people that are there. And that's a memory to those people. It's that part's important to me. And the fact that it can inspire. I want to make sure that that I'm not just inspiring by continuing to wrestle. Yes, wrestling is great. I love that I get the opportunity to still do it. I thank God every day that I have the ability to still get in there and do it. But when it comes to like me, I don't come out here and promise you that I'm going to do it. I don't come out here and say I'm going to do it and then not do it. I just go out and do it. And that's what I want to inspire other people to do that. And just say, this is the thing that I'm going to do. And I tell myself, and then I go do it. Instead of just like getting lost up inside of, I want one of these days I'm going to do this or do that or do this or do that. I'm just doing all of those things.
Right. So, yeah, I imagine it'd be a whole bunch of things combined. Me, all else fails and it all, crashes and burns tomorrow and, I don't get to wrestle again. At least I will have all the times I could look back and say that I thought I was experiencing burnout, that, you know what I mean? That at least those two things met, that I had my fill or I had enough. Because I think for the rest of my life, I'll always be watching like guys being interviewed or, just some matches that they had or them sharing personal stories or them doing podcasts. Like I'll have that for the rest of eternity. Like pro wrestling will never go by the wayside of like roller derby. You can find local people that do like roller derby stuff, but it's never going to be like the same as like a wrestling indie show, and like, if God forbid, if all the fans of wrestling just kind of like faded away, I always kind of looked at it like we got to do what we wanted to do, which was just simply wrestle to begin with. And as long as you've broken even, I don't see any harm in doing that, because then at least you broke even. No guarantees also were made to you breaking in. So
I think also in a past life, I must have been some type of warrior or showman or something like that. It just feels so deeply inside of my DNA that like it's something I have to do. And
I just felt that like, I guess wrestling wise, we are that we're like the only culture out there that views scars as something ugly or a blemish. So to me, it was like, I don't have any tattoos, so I thought the scars always, to me anyway, look cool and they have like an interesting story to tell. But like wrestling itself, like keeps me in pretty good like cardio shape, even if it's just going there, running the ropes or just monkeying around with friends of mine and that kind of thing. Keeps you in shape. And I tend to lean more towards the lower impact stuff, although I'll do stuff that's for no reason, just stupid at times. But
like a hard headbutt to a guy.
Yeah, I mean, like, why would you do that? Like, you didn't have to prove anything to anybody by doing it, or to me, it was like a learning process of like, and he still brought it up even today. When we were working out, he's like, that headbutt that time. I was like, huh? And he goes, do you remember the headbutt? I was like, oh my God, yeah, I do. And I was like, but it all ties in with the whole, his first foray into, the barbed wire that he took or that he went into. I was like, you see now, you get away with it and it becomes addictive. You're like, let's use more barbed wire and let me jump off something higher, and it's who's the marks here? Who, who, for what? You don't have to do that. You realize that, right? Like, I guess if you're not going to get noticed by doing that because everybody's done it already.
Right. Everybody who was going to get noticed for doing those things has already been noticed.
Already been noticed for doing stuff far more spectacular or far.
Right.
It's got to be something from just out of left field. When Joey Janela got noticed because him and Zandig came off that roof, too many things could have went wrong, which is why you don't see people replicating it and being like, let me be the next person to try it or whatever. They heard what happened. That's with the guy who's done it with experience before. It's like, although looking at a CZW and even Ian Rotten stuff, I don't know what told guys like that they were capable of running their own H2O. I don't understand what tells people like that they are capable of running. No doubt they got enough help and enough good help all around to pull it off. But it's just like, what told these people they were qualified to run their own, do their own on their own. You know, who are they broke in by? Who showed them the ropes? And when you look around some of the people and realize who they learned the ropes from, you're like, oh, no wonder they looked at them and said, well, any dipshit can do that. Anybody can open up their own. I think people go in with good intentions and eventually it just becomes a cash grab for them. I always hated that professional wrestling, you know, it draws in those unscrupulous people that just, I don't care that it's derived from the carny and this, that, and the other. It's just like, no, there's right and wrong. There's being a complete scumbag and being, you know, a straight and narrow guy. There is no area of gray. There is no, well, I'm here to make money or whatever. I mean, you got to look at some people and be like, maybe they started out with good intentions. And then eventually they just got to the point where they're like, oh, just any which way I can, you know. Doesn't make it right. You know, it doesn't make it right at all. I mean, those days of, oh, we suckered those marks into buying tickets for this. Those days are so far gone. Everybody knows what wrestling is. It's, nowadays, when it's used for your own scam, it's just more exposed. There's a right way and a wrong way.
So I just have a couple more things. And then I'm gonna send you off into the sunset with a hot dog and a handshake. All right. So, dude, you've been around for a super long time. You've been on tons of podcasts.
Because I won't go away.
You've been on tons of podcasts. On all the podcasts that you've been on, what's the one thing you've been wanting people to ask you, but they haven't asked you?
Oh, God, I thought I had everything all covered. I don't know, because people come out of left field with some crazy stuff. And some of it will be the most general, like, who was your toughest opponent? I'll be like, you know, I don't know. I still can't figure it out. I don't want to slight anybody, but no, you know, there's so many times people have asked me the story of getting started, and they don't realize that, like, I gotta go and tell them, first I went to Larry Sharp's, and then I went to Mike Masters, Rocky Jones. He had ECPW before he sold out his half to Gino Caruso. And then at about that time, I was going to Mike Sharp's place, which Brick Township, New Jersey. And then Bill DeMont. Bill DeMont was Lodi, New Jersey. It was in an old abandoned racquetball court that nobody was using. It's like to have to go through that and explain all those things. It's just like there's no way you got trained by all four. It's like
I know
the
process of being asked that same question so much that it just made me go, okay, I want my show to be nothing like any of those shows, and for sure, I want to make sure that if this wasn't my podcast, I'd want this to be a kind of show I'd listen to. If this wasn't like, I'd want the conversation to head down the path of like something I'd want to hear and conversations that I'd want to hear. And if it's going to be the same types of questions you've been asked on all kinds of other podcasts, like what's the point? Like,
what are you up to? What do you want to plug? It's right, I'll plug away and all that stuff or whatever. But I was always like, you know, people just talk so much wrestling that they don't realize like everyday life. Like, what is it that it's why when I take pictures when I'm in Japan, every last one of my pictures are, I went into this bread shop here and then I did that. And then I went into there and I did this. I'd rather see people see a normal life out there and just not be so surrounded by wrestling, because you're surrounded by wrestling. You have no actual reality in your life. You have everything's a work. Everything, there's something behind everything, you know. Everything, especially because you become desensitized to all the different places that you wrestle and everything like that. Shouldn't have to be like that. There should be an everyday normal thing that you go away, that you go about doing things. Or I'd rather see somebody's daily routine. Like, how many people have you looked at and like, wonder what time he usually gets up in the morning? I wonder what they do now that they're retired. What is it that they do with their life? You know, like, to me, that's much more fascinating. Like, does this guy go and get the paper every day? Does he go pick up a bagel from his favorite place and an orange juice? Like, everyday life to me is like more fascinating because you already know what the wrestling routine is. I've been through that a billion times, and I can't imagine anybody else doing anything differently. But whether it be having like gainful employment just to support your wrestling habit, do that. Do that. When you put all your eggs in one basket, very rarely does it work out for somebody. It still blows my mind as, I go overseas, it's a career, it's a living. And to the point where, it's so serious, I'd have my hair in a ridiculous thing looking like this. So to me, it's worth it. Mask slides up, mask slides on, mask slides off. I'm in the midst of getting like 3 or 4 brand new ones. So,
well, dude, I want to make sure that I state this stuff for the record because how important it is to me. I wanted to make sure I told you right as we were getting started that like you're an important figure in my life and I fucking love you. Like, and there's no denying that. It's absolutely important to me to have that said on the record because I know, dude, like this recording, what we're doing right now, this is going to outlive us. Right?
Yeah.
So
it's for eternity. Somebody someday will discover this and be like, look at these 2 guys going back and forth. Look at those 2 guys with the long hair. Like, oh, look at this. Oh, I found this podcast. Look at what's a podcast? Oh, it's this thing they did in the year 2022. It was very trendy. It was very this. It was very that.
So I want to tell you
I got to honestly say for anybody out there listening, this guy, there was never. It's so weird. Like I would just contact you out of the blue. I felt from the minute I met you, I always got the vibe that you were like a real friendly person. But it was one of those weird things where it's like not too much too fast. Otherwise, these people will be like, well, what's this guy about? What does he want or whatever? You don't realize it's just genuine friendship. It's just, one person. When I say mankind, I don't mean like men. I mean like human beings. Here's something. It's like a voice of reason. I spent a lot of time here recently on the phone with Liz Savage. She asked for nothing. You know what I mean? It's just somebody that you interact with on a daily basis, and you tell them this and you tell them that, and just from one person to another.
Ask Liz Savage about our trip to Jerry Springer.
And I'll tell you about mine too. Oh man. Oh no, I don't feel like getting up to go run and then bring it to you. I have a picture of it. It's a poster from Connecticut. It's me and Tiger Mulligan against Joe Rules and Bulldog Blansky, and it's billed as the Battle of the Jerry Springer guests because we had all recently been on Jerry Springer around that time.
Yeah.
That was 98, 99. Yeah, I was just up here visiting family, and then I wound up doing like a couple months of like Chubb Institute, like one of those units, because by then, other than when Prodigy first came out, I had no computer, anything.
I think that it came through Sammy, actually. Sammy got that for us.
Yeah. It was through osmosis. Like we were in the same realm of clique of women at the same time or whatever. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Sammy was one of the strengthening things. And you know what, even on a personal note, I remember a couple months ago, I had done a podcast like this, and I just told the story of me bailing on his wedding. I was like, this is just for people to know. So I went and I told the story of that. It wasn't in a way to bash a mutual, somebody that you knew, somebody it's probably one of your best friends. It wasn't in a way to slander them. It was a way to get the story out there of what happened. Because I've been asked so many times over the years, and I'm just like, don't even.
Well, was this when you contacted me about talking to him and yes. We connected you guys? Okay.
Yeah, and it was weird because it was between you and somebody that the internet community, because the guy that has this podcast, he'll just take a shit on people and he'll be like, I don't care. I'm not a wrestling fan anymore. This is the way I see it. I was a biggie. He's a huge CZW fan. So to watch him just as the years went on, it just go and just turn into what it did. he was a guy that was disheveled because how many VHS, how many DVDs this guy probably bought over the years supporting the product, always being there live. And then you watch something that you're so impassioned about and that you love so much, and you watch it become so bastardized and this, that, and the other. Well, long story short, you put me in touch with this guy, and I just wanted to clear the air. I was just telling what happened. I wasn't, trying to slander anybody in any kind of way. And you bridge that gap. And here you have no agenda. If anything, you could have made it a lot worse, but you chose to make it so much better. And just like mutual understanding. And I wound up getting his number and talking things out. And I'm like, I realized where he was at that point. He realized where I was. And it was like with me, I didn't care because I was going to Japan anyway. What did I locally? My thought was like here in the States, if I did things like, what's this, ICW, no hold barred, and if I did things like GCW, and if I kept doing things like H2O and like places like that, I'd just be burning the candle at both ends. And then the more visibility people see of me, they go, oh, Tony's willing to do this stuff or nothing, or, or, they get so used to you that they figure, you don't have to owe much, because if he's as over as he likes to think he is, he'll be selling that money in gimmicks or whatever the pay scale might be. With me, I could feel the pull. Then I would become like really loyal to this company or really loyal to that place. And then I would never be able to pull back because I'd be so further, and it would just wind up coming to a nasty head anyway. So I always figured like stateside, like keep the candle from burning at both ends, let your body relax, pick and choose what you wrestling wise should and could do and that kind of thing. And it's not to slight anybody in any kind of way, or for me to act like I'm, something that I'm not, or it's not me big leaguing anybody. It's me taking a step back going, I don't need this. I don't, I overcame my wrestling addiction as far as that part's concerned. That's a good feeling. That's a real great place to be because it doesn't control me. If anything, I put the brakes on and I choose when to go out here and do this. And, I have friends that wrestle for all those places, and I've known the people that promote those things. I've known them for years, and I'm not about to. I broke in as a teenager with Tommy Fierro. I don't need to go to him and be like, "Can I give you booked on your next?" I'm thinking, "Oh man, I got the truck coming in tonight. I'm short drivers. Oh God, I'm worried more about that to make sure that I'm content and got my kid here for the summer. Not going to bother you with bringing her in here, but." So
what I would like to do right now, since you brought her up, and as I mentioned, how important it is for everything being on the record and outliving us, I want to give you the opportunity to participate in something that I call audio time travel. Okay, so someone who cares a lot about you, such as your daughter, would discover this audio in let's say 2042 and wants to hear the time stamp. This is a time capsule, time stamp of right here, right now. What messages are you giving directly to?
More people will tune into my Facebook and be like, that little girl's making wise ass comments again. It's like, it's my best friend. So like I said, when you tend to wrestle friends of yours, you lay it in and you're stiffer and that kind of thing. With me and her, it's like, well, it's going to be my kid forever. So what difference does it make if she wants to slide in a joke here or there? I'll tell you because everybody knows my oldest, my best friend. It's just kind of the way things happened as things went on in our lives and that kind of thing. She lost her mother, at a pretty young age due to cancer, and that's what she's chosen career-wise to pursue. Would be to some type of remedy, some type of cure for it. And in a way, she inspires me constantly because most interesting human being I've ever met my entire life.
Can you speak directly to her? And you're speaking directly to her in 2042.
Yeah,
what are you saying?
For what it's strange to have. Not only is there the gender thing, there is, the bloodline thing. It's kind of funny because when you have other kids and you denote that one person in particular as your best friend, it's like that's just kind of the way that things worked out for some funny reason. So to me, it's a force far greater than love and unconditionally, no doubt about it. She earned that long ago. Just maintains to be my biggest inspiration. At one point, she tried to follow my footsteps. So I was doing Stardom's Idols at the time. It was back in 2018. And she's over there playing volleyball at Utica in upstate New York. Now she's second year post grad med. And I was relieved the day, and this, as a parent, this sounds so screwed up to say, I was relieved the day that she she got a severe concussion. And I was like, you're not going to do this wrestling thing no more, are you? I mean, I was like, I think she watched a couple of Total Divas episodes and figured she'd try to pursue it. But I was so relieved to realize she didn't want it. And, she was only doing it to follow my footsteps in some kind of weird way. But, God, got to be so proud of the way she turned out and about the way things are. You still there? I think it says I lost you. Uh-oh.
Hang on, I'm just peeing. I just
put you on hold. I just got the message. It said you're peeing. All
Hey. All right. So, all right, folks. I guess that's going to be how I wrap up the episode.
Studio. So at what point did it cut me off?
So what had happened was I like teed you up for you to like speak, speak and like kill time while I like put you on solo layout.
And it lost me somewhere. I don't even know audibly the last place that I got to. I don't know audibly the last place I left off. I wouldn't mind repeating the same thing. That's no sweat.
Go ahead. I'm starting to wrap up.
Yeah. No, I know. I told you with me and the way that I tend to ramble, I mean, I could just go on and on and on. But it's not in a way to, it's not one preference over another. It's not a way to say that, oh, I love my kid more than, no, it's saying friend wise that she makes a much better friend than, friendship is completely different from actual like father-daughter parenting relationship and that kind of thing. But that's just kind of the weird way that it worked out for us, and me, myself, I never wanted to, I got to a certain point where I was like, can't advise her this, that, or the other, because as a parent, you don't want to derail the road that your kid is on. Obviously the road is all good and it's cum laude, for Christ's sake. I never came anywhere near that. So I don't want to derail, where the path that she's on. I don't think it's right to step in and try to do that either. Obviously, she's made the right choices and that kind of thing. And I try to keep her about as far away from wrestling as possible, which is why I'm. How strange is it as a parent to say, "I'm glad my kid got a severe concussion," because she opted to bail out. I'm thankful for that. You know, she's going to use anything athletically to her, let it be for a major university or something like that. You know, let her parlay her passion into what she's good at, you know, sporting wise. Because I mean, you're given looks, you're given brains, and you're given athletic ability. You know, I don't think there's any much more that I should, you know, that I could step in and advise her what to do, unless it's something financially to build credit or something along those lines that she hadn't figured out herself. Oh, there's another piss break.
No.
I also told her too, you know, trying to keep her about as far away from the boys as possible. I was like, if anything, no, not wrestling, not wrestlers, no. This past week, sitting there talking to Jimmy Rave's daughter, and it's just like, oof. The week, a couple weeks before that, it was the late Tarzan Goto's son. So it's like the way that these people are left to pick up all the broken pieces is just, as a parent, it's just disheartening, and it's just oof,
you know, that's part of the importance of saying things on the record the way I like to do, is because now Jimmy's daughter reached out to me just like minutes after she talked to you, and I was able to go, "Hey, did you listen to the podcast I did with your dad?" And I sent her that, and like that's like, she's like, "Oh my God, I had this now forever. This is something so cool." And this is a clearer version of him than I've heard on other podcasts. This is like really just him being him. And that's just something that I get to have now, that I got to create that.
It prompts me to go back and listen to it myself. Believe it or not.
It's a cool motivation for me to continue to beat my drum the way I do. And that's exactly part, going back to answering that question about like what keeps me going. And it's not just about what keeps me going in the ring, but it's what keeps me going with all the things that I'm doing, because it's really like each one of those things is serving the other thing. I'd like it to be cyclical in that way.
Yeah. And it just, to me, it just fascinates me with certain guys. It's like, what would keep them hanging in there? Obviously, they've gotten out of their system. That, you know, that feeling that you had when you couldn't wait to climb in the ring and you couldn't wait to lock up with somebody and show off your stuff. And then eventually, as time goes on, like that feeling kind of fades, but other things pick up. Like you're concerned with your own health, or you're like, I need to sweat off a few pounds or whatever. It's there for you. You know, how many wrestlers have went through a divorce that have looked at me and told me, and I'll tell you what, if it wasn't for wrestling, I wouldn't have known what the hell I would have done, because, you know, I didn't want to go home because it was the same house that we were living in, this, that, and the other. And you're just like, God, you know, you wouldn't think that something like wrestling would be like that therapeutic.
Well, it's a happy distraction.
What the hell am I yawning for? All I did was
happy. So, I want to thank you. The thank you will also go to whoever sat through this and listened to our conversation. What's important to me is the currency of effort. The currency of effort is so much more valuable than monetarily, because like you could be doing anything else in the world other than listening to this, or other than being here and chatting with me and hanging out with me. I want to make sure that I extend to you how important it is that, like, if you ever feel like you're going through something and you need a friend, and it's just like you want a judgment-free conversation with somebody and no shame at all, reach out to me. Really. I'm your friend and I'm here. And that goes for anybody listening, anybody watching. Dude, I'm a real person. I'm going to respond to you. Like that's
my
just
door is, the funny thing is my door has always been open to friends. And I see some people, you know, I would rather people take advantage of that versus people taking advantage of, you know, just, you know, well, how do I get, once I'm there, how do I get other bookings? You know what I mean? Like, I'd rather somebody took advantage of my friendship and just kicked it with me and told me how their day was and, you know, and that kind of thing. People do that, then, and take advantage of it, then just take it for granted and be like, well, yeah, you know, like I have other friends, and, you know, and that's the funny thing. I was telling my kid a couple of days ago, I go, if you notice, our door has always been open to everybody. How many random weirdos, strangers, girls I've dated, like wind up spending the night here and all that crap? Like, you know, I'd like to think that I was there for somebody, that there was no agenda, that just not because, oh, I'm a great person, or no, because you could actually use a friend of mine, my friendship. You could actually use, yeah.
Yeah, you'd expect that to be paid forward. Like someone afforded me space to speak my mind, or someone gave me a platform, or someone allowed my platform to be something that entered into their ears and their eyes. Pay that shit forward. Pay that shit always forward.
That's me too. If you wonder why, you know, not to take attention away from it or anything, if you wonder why occasionally I'm sitting here and I'm doing this, it's because I'm taking a screenshot. I was going to put it on social media and be like, yeah, I did this thing. And it's therapeutic, honest to God, in the weirdest way. It's therapeutic, like getting on someone's podcast and just talking, and, you know, like, just everybody's got stuff that they want to get off their chest. Other people use it as like a format to, oh, let me talk shit about this person or bury that person. If you're the type of person I talk bad about, chances are you really went out of your way to earn that shit, because it takes a couple times, you know, it's just not, initially somebody could rub me the wrong way, but then eventually I put up with them because I see them in the same places, wrestling the same people. So, you know, I try to be passive about it, but
there's not many people that I could like talk bad about. There's a few, but not a lot.
Me too. And there's a handful where on public record, I'm like, screw that guy. What an asshole, you know, like, but I don't use it as I never use something like this as a forum to be like, let's just trash on this guy, and the truth. Everybody should know the truth on this guy. If people don't know by now, else who has a far worse agenda, who's far more pissed off, who got ripped off for far much more, or what have you. I'm just the guy to either stand there and back it up, or the guy that's going to offer my side of the story, what happened with me, or what have you. I'm not the kind of guy that's like, yeah, I'm going to get even with him. I'm going to fucking bury him on this podcast.
Funny enough, Tone, the way we wrap up the show, the way we wrap up every time is like, I'll tell you that hypothetically I've gifted you this show. And this has been the first episode of your new podcast, Evolving with Tony Myers, episode 1. In a very Jerry Springer's final thought. What's that?
I know at one point you're going to walk me through how to get my own podcast. And I'm just like, there's already a plethora. There's already enough hosts out there like Cory Kastle that could do far better than me. But
well, you see, man, no one else has your expertise. No one else has lived the type of life that you've lived.
Nobody else had as much passion. Nobody else had common sense. Like whatever. Or I just haven't, or I just like refuse to grow up or something, or refuse to go away, or you know.
So in a very Jerry Springer's final thought type of way, how would you do the wrap everything in a pretty bow and give us the most valuable takeaways to evolve to a better version of ourselves tomorrow than we are today?
Well, no matter what it is, whether you, oh God, I want to quit smoking. Oh, gee, I want to stop using recreational drugs. Oh man, my resolution should be, eat healthier or whatever. It's like, well, guess what? If you think you're hungry and you look at something and you go, oh God, that's basically crap. Well, then guess what? You're not hungry. If you don't have the money to do drugs, you better find a new habit or a new hobby because obviously you don't have that kind of money to be using that kind of strong drugs or what have you. I mean, the way I've always seen it is, it's always out there, man. The yin and yang sign, the balance of mankind. Boy, it applies to so much of life where you don't want to overexceed in this, that, and the other. I have literally, and I sat and I watched it through Corona too, where people have just gotten themselves in such terrible shape or stay so inactive. You're not doing it for cosmetic purposes. You're doing it because it feels disgusting if you're going to haul around 330 pounds of just, dude, that's like me or you strapping like the inside of a waterbed to ourselves and walking around with it every day. Like, geez, it's not doing it for any kind of cosmetic, nothing. It's as if to say like, hey, one, you accomplished something, and two, it'll add some years on your life. So, I mean, no matter what it is, you're going to have to balance it out and do it in moderation. I've learned that so much the hard way. And I don't even know if I'm putting it into the right words right now because I've never thought about it out loud. I've always just, walked along a street and just kind of, gotten a walk in and then be like, how would I put this into thought? How would I put this into words, my thoughts right now? So I don't even know if that came out all right, but makes perfect sense to me.
Now, normally I ask if you have any impressions, and ask that inside of that impression, say the catchphrase of the show, how we wrap up every time, would normally be fun, have safe, keep evolving. But I was going to ask you if you could say that, but in Japanese.
What was it? Be safe.
Be fun, have safe, keep evolving.
いつも楽しみです。もちろんです。いつも私のポッドキャスト大丈夫問題ない。Cory Kastle、どうもありがとうございます。どうもありがとうございます。In other words, have fun. Yeah, 楽しみです。Yeah, be safe. 気をつけて. Best way to say it. 気をつけて. Be safe. Be careful. When you're doing something, use that precaution. 気をつけて. Which has to be pronounced and said that way. Otherwise, the word means nothing. It's almost like you're mocking Japanese when you're actually saying it out loud like them. Daijoubu? Mondai nai. Not a problem. No problem at all.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for doing this.
Here's another good one. Yeah, buddy. As in, I understand. I got what you mean. Yeah, buddy. That was always a funny word to me. Whenever I would listen to him pronounce it, I'd be like, what? Like, yeah, buddy? Yeah, buddy. It means, oh, yeah, I hear you. I hear you, man.
All right, everybody. Thanks so much for all your attention. The currency of your effort is very much appreciated. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe, comment so that I know that you exist. Follow me on YouTube, youtube.com/Cory Kastle, on all the other platforms at Cory Kastle, CoryKastle, as it says right here on the screen if you're watching the video. Be kinder to yourselves. Be kinder to everybody else. Be fun. Have safe. Keep evolving.
Thank you so much for the platform. I still feel I owe you, man.